Margaret, 72, never thought she would start noticing small changes in her body this early. For years, she had a simple routine that brought her comfort. Every evening after dinner, she would take a slow walk around her neighborhood. On weekends, she spent hours in her garden, carefully tending to her roses and herbs. It wasn't about staying busy. It was something that made her feel steady, grounded, and quietly content. But over the past year, something began to shift in a way she couldn't quite explain. It wasn't sudden, and it wasn't dramatic. At first, it was just a slight heaviness after meals. Then she started feeling more tired than usual, even on days when she hadn't done much. Sitting down became easier than getting back up. The same chair by the window, where she used to relax and enjoy the view, slowly turned into a place she stayed longer than she intended. What made it more confusing was that nothing in her lifestyle had really changed. She still ate the same kinds of meals. She stayed active in her own way. There was no clear reason for things to feel different, yet they did. At first, she told herself it was nothing important, just a normal part of getting older, something everyone goes through eventually. But as the days passed, that quiet discomfort became harder to ignore. It wasn't pain, it was something more subtle, like her body was no longer moving at the same rhythm it used to, and that was the part she couldn't quite understand. What Margaret experienced is something many people begin to notice after the age of 60, even if they don't talk about it openly. It often starts in a very subtle way. Meals that once felt light and satisfying begin to feel heavier. You might notice a sense of fullness that lingers longer than it used to, even when you haven't eaten much. It's not uncomfortable enough to be alarming, but it's different. Digestion may feel slower, as if your body is taking more time to process what you eat. Sometimes there's a quiet heaviness in the lower stomach, or a feeling that things aren't moving as smoothly as before. Along with that, energy levels can shift in ways that are easy to overlook. Instead of feeling refreshed after a meal, you might feel slightly tired or less motivated to stay active. What makes these changes easy to ignore is how gradually they appear. There's no clear moment when everything changes. It happens step by step, over weeks or months, until it simply becomes your new normal. Many people adjust without realizing it, eating a little less, moving a little slower, or resting more often. And if you've noticed even a few of these small changes, it may feel surprisingly familiar. These changes don't happen without a reason. As the body ages, certain internal processes begin to slow down in ways that are easy to miss but important to understand. One of the key shifts happens in the digestive system. The muscles that help move food through your intestines continue to work, but they may become less efficient over time. Instead of a smooth, steady rhythm, the process can feel slower and less predictable. At the same time, the body tends to hold less moisture in the digestive tract. This matters more than it sounds. When there isn't enough fluid supporting the process, everything can feel a bit heavier and harder to move along. It's not something you can see directly, but you can feel the difference in how your body responds after meals. There's also a gradual change in how the body handles certain types of food, especially those that require more effort to break down. Foods that once felt easy to digest may now feel slightly more demanding, even if your eating habits haven't changed. None of this means something is wrong. It simply reflects a natural shift in how the body functions over time. Understanding this creates a clearer picture of what's really happening and why the right kind of support can make a meaningful difference. When these changes begin to appear, many people try to fix them in ways that seem logical but often miss the real issue. One of the most common reactions is to eat less. When meals start to feel heavy, the instinct is to reduce portion sizes or skip certain foods altogether. It feels like the simplest solution. Less food should mean less discomfort. But this approach can quietly make things worse. When the body receives less nourishment, it also receives less of what it needs to keep digestion working smoothly, especially fiber and fluid from whole foods. Instead of easing the process, it can slow things down even further. Another common habit is cutting out foods too quickly, especially fruits, because of concerns about sugar. While the intention is to be careful, this often removes natural sources of support that the body actually needs more with age. The underlying issue is not simply how much you eat, it's how well your body is supported in processing what you eat. And when that support is missing, even small meals can feel harder to handle. Once you see that, the focus begins to shift in a more helpful direction. Sometimes the most helpful changes are also the simplest. In Margaret's case, the suggestion she received wasn't complicated or restrictive. It didn't involve removing foods she enjoyed or following a strict plan. It was just one small addition, a modest portion of prunes each morning. At first, it didn't seem significant. Prunes are often overlooked or associated with something outdated. They don't feel like a modern solution, and they certainly don't come with bold promises. But that's exactly why this approach works in a different way. It focuses on support rather than quick change. There's no need to overthink it. No special timing beyond making it part of a daily habit. No need to combine it with multiple adjustments all at once. Just a simple, consistent addition that fits easily into an existing routine. What makes this interesting is not just the simplicity, but the effect it can have over time. Not dramatic or immediate, but steady and noticeable. And that raises a natural question. How can something so small make a difference? The answer becomes clearer when you look at what it's actually doing inside the body. To understand why something as simple as prunes can make a difference, it helps to look at how they support the body from multiple angles at once. They are not just a source of fiber, they offer a combination that works together in a balanced way. Prunes contain both soluble and insoluble fiber. Soluble fiber absorbs water and forms a soft, gel-like texture as it moves through the digestive system. This helps make the process feel smoother and more comfortable. Insoluble fiber, on the other hand, adds gentle structure and encourages steady movement. Instead of one type working alone, these two forms of fiber complement each other, creating a more complete kind of support. Another important aspect is hydration within the digestive tract. As mentioned earlier, the body tends to retain less moisture with age. Prunes naturally help draw and hold water in the system, which can make everything feel less heavy and easier to process. This is not a forced effect, it's a gradual shift toward better balance. There are also natural compounds in prunes that encourage the digestive system to stay active in a gentle way, not abruptly, not aggressively, but enough to support a steady internal rhythm, and that word matters. Because for many people, the real issue isn't constant discomfort, but inconsistency. Some days feel fine, others feel slow or heavy. That unpredictable pattern is what creates frustration. What prunes help restore is a sense of regularity, a rhythm your body can rely on again. When these elements come together, fiber balance, improved hydration, and gentle stimulation, the result is not a quick fix, but a more stable and natural process over time. When you begin adding this small habit, it helps to understand how the changes typically unfold over time. In the first few days, around day 1 to 3, the effect is usually very subtle. You may notice a slightly lighter feeling after meals, or a small shift in comfort, but nothing dramatic. This early stage is simply your body adjusting. By the end of the first week, the difference often becomes more noticeable. The heaviness after eating may not appear as often, and digestion can start to feel more consistent. It's not perfect, but there is a clear sense that things are moving in a better direction. Around the 2-week mark, the improvement tends to feel more stable. The body begins to settle into a rhythm, and that sense of unpredictability starts to fade. What matters here is keeping expectations realistic. This is not about sudden change, but about steady progress that builds with consistency. One change that often surprises people is how closely digestion is connected to energy. When the digestive system feels slow or heavy, the body has to work harder behind the scenes to process even a normal meal. That extra effort can leave you feeling slightly tired, less motivated, or more inclined to sit down and rest. As digestion becomes smoother and more consistent, that internal effort begins to ease. The body no longer feels like it's working against itself. Instead, there's a subtle shift toward balance. You may notice that after meals, you feel lighter rather than sluggish. Not a sudden burst of energy, but a steadier, more reliable level throughout the day. This is often described in a simple way. The body starts to feel like it's working with you again. Everyday activities, walking, moving around the house, even staying active a bit longer, begin to feel more natural. It's not dramatic, but it's meaningful in how it changes your daily rhythm. One of the most important ideas to understand is that consistency matters far more than quantity. Many people assume that doing more will lead to faster results, but the body doesn't respond that way. It responds to patterns. When something is done regularly, even in small amounts, the body begins to recognize it and adapt over time. This is why a modest daily portion works better than a larger amount taken occasionally. A single large change may create a temporary effect, but it doesn't build a lasting rhythm. On the other hand, a small, repeated habit sends a steady signal that the body can adjust to. Think of it less as a quick fix and more as a quiet routine. There's no need to increase the amount or rush the process. What creates the real difference is showing up each day with the same simple action. Over time, that consistency builds stability. The body starts to operate in a more predictable way, and that sense of balance becomes easier to maintain. When you look at the bigger picture, the goal isn't to make drastic changes, it's to support your body in a way that feels natural and sustainable. Small shifts, done consistently, can create a noticeable difference over time. It's not about chasing quick results, but about helping your body return to a steadier rhythm that feels comfortable and familiar again. If this feels relevant to you, consider starting with one simple step. Add a small portion to your daily routine and give it time. Pay attention to how your body responds over the next couple of weeks. Sometimes the most meaningful improvements come from the smallest changes. If you found this helpful, feel free to share it with someone who might benefit from it. And if you'd like to see more simple, practical ideas like this, you can subscribe to the channel and follow along.